Hello and welcome to this BMS 433 video. This video I'm going to demonstrate the functions and features of the Tactical Engagement Builder or the Mission Builder. And there's a lot of reasons why you would want to use the Mission Builder. One is that it's fun to build your own missions. You can also build your own scenarios to test out some tactics, air-to-air, air-to-ground, use of weapons. It's also very good for training, one-on-one in scenarios. And finally, and most importantly, the Mission Builder is the same techniques used for generating missions while in a campaign mode, which is what you'll probably be playing or using most of the time. So what you learn here can be applied when it comes to a campaign and you wish to frag in a new mission for a specific objective. In fact, there's some servers run with the ability to generate or frag in your own flights. So with that in mind, we're going to choose the Tactical Engagement option, select the Save Missions and click on Tactical Engagement Builder. And you can see by default we've got some objects on the map. And if we want to switch on or off these objects, we can right click anywhere that's not an object on the map, and you can see by drilling down slowly that there's some objects highlighted by green buttons there. So you can see by switching them off, they disappear from the map. There's a whole lot of other options there we can switch on and switch off, and I'm not going to go through all these. We'll touch some of them as we go through the various sections of this video. So I'm going to switch on airfields and I'm going to switch on infrastructure, because we're going to set up now a flight which attacks a piece of infrastructure in the north from an airstrip in the south. And the airstrip I'm choosing to launch from is Kangyong, and we're going to attack a bridge up here, Hoyang Bridge. So the reason why I've switched on the airfields is because when we create a flight, we have to determine the airfield that we want the flight from to be on. We can let the mission generator to automatically choose it, but I think it's better that you can decide and understand how to select it manually. So to manually create a flight, what we do is we get the focus onto where our target area is, and it's important to note that the way the Mission Builder is designed, it's focused on a time on target rather than a takeoff time, and this becomes very apparent when we talk about packages in another stage, in another part of the video. At the moment we're just looking at one single mission here, and what we're going to do is when we got this focus on a particular object on the map here, we can see a little spot comes to the side of our icon there to tell us that we've got the focus. And when we right click, we've got different options here depending on the object, and then when we right click just on the map. So I'm going to now create a flight, and we can create a flight in two ways. We can right click on the object, say add a flight, or else we can go over to the option buttons over here, click on the make flight button, and then just normal click on the object to make the flight. And we're presented with an add flight window up here with a number of different options. The first one, obvious, it's the type of aircraft we use. The next one is the role, and there's a number of different roles here. We're going to choose strike for this one. Size is the number of flights, and the new comes up here because there's no squadrons on the map, and it's important to know that the pecking order or the hierarchy is we have an airbase that can have one or more squadrons on it, and from each of those squadrons one or more flights can be generated. Now we've got our flight up, and it's telling us it's Hoyang Bridge, so that's doing what I expect it to do, and our skill level is ace. And this is important that we can define where the flight will be placed on the map at relative to the current time. So the current time is showing on the top right hand side here, and I'll show you how in a moment to adjust that. We can see the two ones we're interested in are takeoff and target. So if we choose takeoff here and we press OK, it means that This flight will be generated to take off at the time indicated on the map, or very close to, you know, within a minute anyway. In this case, we're going to focus on the target area because we want our flight to arrive on target at 9 o'clock. We press OK to that, and now our flight's created. Now, the reason why it created the flight there from Mandumi is because when we went in to choose a new flight, you see the new squadron option came up, and the Mandumi airstrip came up. Now we don't want to do that, so I'm going to show you how to remove a flight, and we do this by going down into the air tasking order screen, click on show all packages, expand down to the particular flight we've got, and we can see it there. Right click on it and choose delete. Close that window out, and we've now removed our flight. However, we've maintained our package, and we still have our squadron, and we still have our squadron at Mandumi Air Base. And we're going to leave that there. We won't use it, but we'll see how it presents itself when we go to make an additional flight. So we're going to try this once more. Focus in on the bridge, right click and click on add flight. I'm going to leave everything as the same as it was, except you can see here instead of new, we now have a fighter squadron there. But we don't want to use that because we know this is from Mandumi airstrip. So we're going to do it instead, we're going to say new. And instead of leaving it at Mandumi, because we can have more than one squadron at any particular airbase. We're going to roll down to a Kongyang airbase, which is the one we want on the east coast, and press OK to that. Everything else is the same, and our target time is the same. We press OK to that. Now we can center that in the screen by clicking on the button over here, Fit Flight Plan button. Now we can see our flight, and we can see the time is 9 o'clock, and this is where our aircraft will be at 9 o'clock. So we've got the essence of it. If we go back in time, if we roll back the clock, we can make our way back to when the aircraft took off. But we can analyze it more easily than that by looking at the flight plan and clicking on it. So we click on, we look at, once again, there's more than one way to do most things in BMS. We can either click on the steer point itself, or we can go down here and we can click on the flight plan button. By clicking on the flight plan button, it always takes us back to steer point 1. We're going to focus on the steer point 7 because that's our target area, and you can see steer point 7, it tells us the action here. There's a number of different options here. We can scroll back through the different steer points here. We can delete them from this. If there's more than one flight in the package, we can select it from the drop down. These two are important, the time of steer point and the calculated airspeed. And there's locks against both of those, and I'll demonstrate what these do in a moment. If we go down, we can see the formation is there, the action, and it's generally navigation action throughout most of the steer points. If we look at the action, we can see here the roll, or the action point, and it changes depending on the steer point. And we'll choose 7 here. We can see that it's a strike, and once it's a strike, we have to have had a specified target. We can change this by going through the assign screen here, and you can see there's some objects in close proximity that it will pick up, and we could, for instance, we could attack some buildings in Hosang town, in Hoyang town, or we can just attack the bridge. And you can see the details. The bridge is fully operational. So we've already assigned that, although we can do it again there as our target point, and we can see it comes up here. And it's important to note that because we set the target time in the flight planning part, it means that the time on steer point for 2.7 is locked. And what that says is that we want, no matter what else happens here on the way up, we need to adjust our speeds and our takeoff time in order to make sure that we reach this target by that exact time. And it's 9:01. Now we can change that time, and if we want to change the time on target or a takeoff time, if we've chosen takeoff time to be the focus, we can do that by, first of all, we must check that there's no locks that are not on the steer point we want to change. So we thumb through this and we can see there's only one lock, which is the take, which is the on target time. So that's fine. So it means that when we make a change to this, the only thing that changes is the time here, and all the other times for the steer points are going to be adjusted to correspond to it. So it's like moving the clock back by 1 minute. So I'm going to change this to make it 9 o'clock just to demonstrate this. So we change that to 0. You can see what happens. The aircraft has moved over the steer point area. So that's saying that's going to arrive exactly over the steer point at 9 o'clock. So now that we've got that done, we can look at how we can adjust some of the other parameters for the flight. The next thing we're going to look at is the altitude. And if we look at the steer point, go back to steer point 7, look at the altitude, we're at 17,000. So we can adjust the steer point through each of those by clicking on them one by one. We could adjust them in that way, or we can do it using the graphical method here, using these two buttons here. One of them is a logarithmic and one of them is normal scale. So let's look at the logarithmic one first. Here it shows them all together, and it shows our altitude is pretty much okay. Kind of climb an altitude, we drop an altitude over the target area and then we climb again. Going to make a slight adjustment to these here. I'm actually going to make a level flight on the way home, but I'm going to have a gradual climbing up to the IP point, and that this will provide an easier load for the aircraft, and also a more consistent flight. So something like that might work. And if I click on the non-log one, we can see it in a bit more detail. We zoom in there. So that's kind of a straight line. We've got a little bit out of kilter here. Let's move that one up. That's good enough for me. So we switch that off. And now let's go back to our flight plan. And now let's look at our speeds. So you can see with different speeds at different steer points, and we want to give it pretty much a fixed speed up to the target area. And we're going to choose at the target area, we're going to choose 300 knots. You can see once I adjust that, it's actually assuming that I want to lock it. So it puts the lock button onto it. So remember, you see what I'm doing here? I've started off at steer point 7, so I've locked that one. So what happens afterwards is not really relevant, because this only has a knock-on effect back to what's going to happen beforehand. So let's now work our way down. So back to 6, and we're going to do the same thing with 6. Actually, just make sure it's 3. So 300 CAS 5 needs to be adjusted down also. It's a 300. 4 and 3. So we leave it at that, which gives it an easy route. So we're gradually climbing at 300 knots CAS from steer point 3 up to steer point 7, or steer point 6, which is the pre-IP. That mission looks good now, and what I'm going to do is, before I do anything else, I'm going to just save that. That's my rough work, so I save it into my rough work mission, and we're good now to make adjustments to that. So I want to show how some adjustments made on this are going to impact things. So let's look at our mission takeoff time. You can see it's 8:40 in the morning. So it's 8:40. And now let's say we want to put in a leg which takes us around, circumvents a particular threat, for instance. And if I bring up the steer point in question, steer point 4, I'm going to make a move to steer point 4. So I'm going to drag it out here. You can see what's happening up here. Time is changing. And what's happening is as I'm increasing the amount of distance that we put in, the time that we have to be at that steer point goes down. And that's the same if we look at the takeoff time is going to move. So we're going to have to take off earlier. Let's look at our takeoff time. So it's 8:40 in the morning, as we said. And if I move this out here and we go back, it now goes to 8:27. It's more important that your package arrives together in the target area, or certainly at the fence-in point, than it is to have your aircraft taken off together. And in campaign mode, you'll find that that's the case, that particularly in a large multiplayer servers, you'll find that there may be a group of a number of people, and some of them will actually take off. They'll get into their jet at different times than other people to start the mission. And I'll cover this more when we make a package and we make a mission scenario later in the video. So that's pretty much everything there. I want to show what happens if we have more than one lock here. So let's say we want a lock. Now this is all good. It doesn't matter because our timing has been selected, and that all works very well, given that flight track and flight plan. And now I've locked our takeoff point and I've locked our target point. And you can see the complications if we try and adjust now the plan, because what it's doing is we're saying that we want to take off at a particular time, and then we want to arrive at steer point 7 at a particular time, and we want to adjust things in the middle, and hopefully things will be the same, but they won't. So let's now move our steer point 3 again, or let's say steer point 4 again. It goes down here, and you can see what happens if we move it out to a certain distance. It's going to give us red lines everywhere, and this really is saying that we're either our aircraft, now in this case we're asking it to do too much, so our aircraft speed is not going to be able to keep up with that and do the job. So it's important to understand that. So this is the challenge that we have when we try and lock two things together. Now if I switch that off, and let's go back and try and fix this, and I'm going to take the lock off one. Now the problem here is that it's already tried to reset the timings now, so it becomes a challenge to fix this mission. And I would describe this flight as being seriously broken, and you would probably be better off creating a new flight for this in place of the old one, rather than trying to fix all the elements here. Now in this case I've moved this back, I've taken the lock off and I've moved it back, and it works fine. But in some cases you'll find, well, we're still not quite fine here, but in some cases you'll find that it's impossible to fix, or certainly tedious and quicker and easier in the long run to do a replacement. So I'm going to try and fix this because it's not seriously broken now. We're only broken back at steer point 2. We can see here our speed has gone down to 0 there, so we need to bump that up. So I'm bumping it up to 300 again, and now everything else is fixed on that mission, so that's all good. The only other thing I need to say about this mission is treated as a package from within the builder, and once a squadron is created for it, the flight then becomes part of a package. And we can see that when we looked at the air tasking order, we can see when we select and expand US. Now this air tasking order button, we'll see it better when we make the final mission. It holds all the packages in the theater. If we have more than one flight in a package, we can show them all by clicking on that button there. There's also an option here you can see of changing the action or the role that the flight has, but it doesn't actually affect the flight once the flight has been created, but it does affect how it's described in the mission tasking screen when you come to flight a mission, and it also describes how it appears in the briefing. So this is a strike package. Let's look at that now. This is a strike package, and you can see Falcon 1 is strike, destroy the bridge at the target site. And if I change that, be an escort, and look at it again, we see it's different. All this is there is for by way of indication, and it should really align with what you made at the start. So in this case it's a strike. I don't know why these things are not grouped in alphabetical order. Okay, so that's as much as I want to say from the flight creation screen. Okay, now let's look at creating a package. And a package is a collection of one or more flights. So every flight in BMS Falcon is by default a package, but that package can have more than one flight in it, and it could have several flights even of the same roles. However, packages are usually not more than 3 or 4 flights, otherwise they become very unwieldy and difficult to manage. A package is essentially a group of flights which are related in achieving a specific objective. A good example is a strike package which has 3 elements or 3 flights within it. One would be the strike element itself. Another one would be a seed element which attempts to suppress enemy air defences at the target site or en route. And thirdly, an escort which would be defined to escort the strike. Now you could have 2 escorts within that package, one supporting the seed and the other supporting the strike. Packages can be from a single airport or from a variety of different air bases. In a campaign mode, for example, because campaigns will have squadrons stationed at different air bases, and the squadrons will have different roles. When you come to assemble a strike, your resources may be drawn from different air bases. So they may, by inference then, take off at different times in order to meet the package timing requirements. Let's go and add to this flight, because we can generate packages by starting off and adding a package, or we can generate it from adjusting an existing flight and adding flights to that package. So we need to probably stop talking about this as a flight now and consider it as a package with one flight. And we do this by starting off at the air tasking order page where our package description is defined. You see there's one flight in there. And if we go to the package line, you can see the package has a number. It's 4960. We can right click on that and we can say show flights. And now we've got an input screen that enables us to add a new flight to that package. We can delete one that's already there if we want to. We can also delete by just right clicking on the flight if we need to. And we can see there's some information here about the takeoff and the time on target. Now you can see where the takeoff time has been adjusted based on the existing flight that we've generated, or the existing package that we've generated. And our time on target is 9 o'clock, and we're going to leave that for the moment. So we're going to select new, and now we get the add flight dialog as we saw in the last section, last part of the video. Once again, we're going to stick with the same aircraft type here. This time we're going to choose SCAD. I'm going to change the size to 2, and you can see now it's given us the option for the different squadrons that we've already created, or we can create a new one. Now if I try and create, let's say we do want to create this out of the same airbase that we've used, Gwangyang, and if I choose Gwangyang, and it's telling us west of Hoyang, so that's just a rough designation of where the seed is going to be looking, and everything else is okay there. Okay, so let us create that flight. So we've got 2 flights created now, and we're going to add a final one here, and this time it's going to be an escort, and once we choose escort, we don't want the Mandumi again either, we want the Gwangyang, and I'm going to choose all that, press OK to that, and now we have 3 flights. And notice that we have those 3 flights coming from the same squadron. Could have made different squadrons for those, but it probably makes sense to keep them a similar squadron in a similar airbase of the same aircraft type. I'm going to press OK to that now, and now our flights are available to us on the map. We can see there's some confusion here. There's slight differences in the timing, even though we set the timing to have the same time on target. So we can see there's three different flights there, although only one flight is highlighted in the background. They are coincident because they take the same route, because they're coming from the same airbase. So what we want to do is we want to close up this gap a little bit, and we have to first identify which flight is in the lead there. And if you hover over it, we can see that's a flight of 3 strikes. We have 3 in the strike, 2 in the seed, and 2 in the escort. So you can see that's the strike. So that's actually that appears to be trailing behind the other 2 by a significant amount. Well, maybe not a significant amount, but we're going to adjust it anyway, just to show how we can do that. And first of all, we're going to just draw back our timing a little bit on our other aircraft. So we can see that they're both now just heading towards the target area, and we want to bring this one up a little bit. And remember what we did before when we adjusted the flights. We select the flight, the strike, and let's look at it let's look at our flight detail. In this case, we're too slow, so we want to take off a couple of minutes earlier. So let's try dropping that by, we've dropped it by 1 minute, and let's just take a few more seconds off that and bring it up behind. That looks like a good spread for those 3 flights. We look at our distance there. We can right click on the map, it's a useful tool, pick out the ruler, and we can just measure exactly what that distance is. So we're talking about 3 miles there and 3 mile spacing. So that's probably good enough for us for what we need to do for that package. We press OK to that, and we just switch that off. So in the same way, if we want, now I'm going to save that in our workspace TE, and in the same way that we want to add flights, we can remove them by clicking here and removing a flight. While we're looking at the flight types here, the flight roles, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the flight roles, and let's bring up the flight plan for one of the flights, doesn't matter. Because we're in the package here, when we pick out the flight, any of the flights, you can see we get the package number. And this all ties in, and we'll see this when we look at the tasking from the mission briefing. When we go to flight mission, we can see this package number is important and it's relevant, and it allows us to identify the elements of the package. So we can see from here, we have our package number, and we can select any of them by choosing the drop down list for a particular steer point. So let's look at Falcon 1. Falcon is the strike, Fury is the seed, and Lobo is the escort. So let's look at Falcon, it's the strike, and if we thumb on to 7, we can see objective is Hongyang Bridge, and we can assign, we've talked about that. Let's look at the Fury one, and let's look at the options on Fury. So Fury has a patrol option there, and it's a patrol option at steer point 3, which is probably way too far back. We're just going to simulate an SA3 site, and we will put an SA3 site in the mission that we build. Status SA3 accept. Okay, so you can see now this gives an idea of the threat. So SA3, we probably want it at steer point 5. Let's just select the seed mission, make sure we have the right steer point for it. Yeah, so the seed mission, so he should be able to strike that from 5. So we're going to adjust that mission. I'm going to take it from here. I'm going to take the holding point out here. I'm going to put it in at 5. I'm going to give it a duration of 10 minutes. We don't want it to be any longer than that. And the other thing is we don't want it loitering around too long after we're gone back, or the strike has gone back, because it's likely to be attacked by air threats. I've shown a couple of things, additional things there. I've shown how to put on a pre-planned steer point on the map there. Don't forget to click the save button, because this saves a separate file with this information in it. So that's by way of our package, and we can see the way we can sequence the package. And finally, when we've created our package and our mission, if we want to deploy it, this is not a completed mission, but the last thing we would want to do is we want to adjust the timing so that when we start the mission, it starts off and gives everybody enough time to ramp. A few other things I'm going to look at before we go into creating the mission is some of the objects we haven't looked at here. We can place ground units on the map by clicking here, clicking on the battalions option, and we just select a location on the map depending on the side. Oh yeah, we've got it. It's important that we select the side. Everything we've done so far was friendlies, so everything we put on the map is related to what team we choose from the team selector button on the top. So we want to put in some objects close to our bridge, for instance. Let's say we want to put in a battalion of tanks that are moving into that town that we want to hold up with our strike. We can do that by just clicking on our battalion button, putting it somewhere on the map. Now that's US, so that's not good enough. We're just going to change it to enemy. I'm going to try that again, and I'm going to change it to T62s. You can see that group is there, including our T62s, and it's put on the map. And we can see that it's the 127th Tank Battalion. Now if we want to start that in motion, we have to be careful here that we adjust our time correctly, because we want our time to make sure we want the time to sequence it so that we have some decent activity here. Let's say we want to move it back a little bit and makes our attack on that site a bit more critical. We click on that battalion we created and a little circle comes up, and now what we can do is we can pull the circle, and let's say we're going to take it to this town. It will generate the route, and don't mind about how it's visually presented. It will pretty much follow the routes that are available on the map, and it will, you can see, it'll travel through those two bridges and up to the town close by there. Also, we can put ships on the map, ship groups. It's exactly the same as the battalions. You select an area in the sea, choose the side. In this case, we're going to put an American group here. Choose the side and select group type. We want to choose Carl Vinson. And from what I can see, I can't see a way of adjusting this. Somebody might comment on this in the comments section, but when we play through the mission, you'll find as time goes by, this will start moving west to east. I'm not sure there's a mechanism for adjusting the route that carrier or ship groups take. That's the way we can also put a squadron, or we can put a squadron on here if we want by right clicking, by adding a flight and choosing a squadron name for that flight. So we can also put a squadron on here should we need that, and we can do this by clicking on the squadron button, go down to the object, click on what it is we're putting on, and it really should be something that can take off in the carrier, otherwise it would be a bit of a mess. So we pick on the F-18, 16s, F-18. I think the D can take off a carrier, so let's say we want to create a flight from that carrier group. Going to right click on here and say add flight, and it's chosen what we've just created there, the squadron from the carrier present task group. There's only one there, so I'm guessing it'll work for that. It's a strike 2, and press OK to that, and now we can see we have a strike coming off that carrier. Looking at the other objects on that we can view and not view on the map, one of them is the set bullseye. We can show bullseye first of all, but we can also set it. Right click and choose set bullseye. Confirm, and it moves the bullseye to that location. So we can put on object labels. There's a whole lot of various things here. Steer point lines are very useful, and you can see here it's created a spot where we were. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make it into a line, and we right click on it and add a point. Right click, add a point, right click, add a point, right click, add a point, and then it won't let us do any more because we can only do 5. So I can move these by just stretching them out one by one to a different location, and when we come to fly on our HSD, we'll get this information. We'll also get this threat circle. Don't forget, before saving, is to save the data cartridge information to our INI file. So that's all I want to do on the packages, the flights and the squadrons. Now we'll move on to make a quick scenario. Okay, we're going to start from a blank canvas now, and we're going to create a mission from scratch. So the mission is going to be a strike to our Honsang Bridge in the north that we looked at, and that's going to be protected by an SA3 site, and we're going to strike it hopefully in advance of a battalion of tanks which is heading across that bridge soon afterwards. We're also going to have AWACS in the air south of the neutral zone to support us. The strike package is going to come, it's going to have 3 elements coming out of 3 different air bases on the west. And let's start by adding in the squadrons. So the squadrons, adding in squadrons is not time dependent, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to choose, right click on the map and switch on our airfields so I know where we're going to place the squadron. So we're going to place our AWACS sentries at Chungwon Air Base. Going to switch, going to place our Block 52s, DMs on both Kimpo and Suyeon. And we're going to place Eurofighters or Typhoons on Mandumi. And we're going to change our side and put MiGs onto Kumni, MiG-29s, MiG-29As. So while we're up here, we're going to put an SA3 site up here. DPRK is fine. They're the static elements. We don't need to worry about the timing of any of those. And we're now going to start looking at the timing. So the timing is going to be, we're going to put the time on the target at 6:30 AM, and the time of the AWACS is going to be an hour before that, so it's in the air and supporting us. So I'm going to start with the AWACS and turn back the time to 5 AM because we have an offset of about 30 minutes when we want to create a package. Switch our side back, and to create our package here south of the neutral zone for the AWACS station, right click and choose add package. You can see 5:30 is the package time on target. I'm going to select new to that. Now we're going to choose our sentry, change it to one of those, and it's coming out of Chungwon, which is where we placed our squadron. It's ace, and instead of takeoff we're going to have on target. I'll press OK to that and OK, and now we can just check the time on target. Time on target is 5:30, perfect. And now we're going to, and if we look at the time, it's locked, so that's the lock. So now we can remove all these extra unnecessary steer points and simplify that mission, that flight plan. Going to move it a little bit, take it a little bit further south, and put it in at 30 miles. So it's kind of well away from any potential threats. Now we're going to do our strike package. I'm going to switch on bridges. We can see them. And I'm going to select our bridge on Hoyang Bridge. And we're going to right click and choose add package. 5:30 is the time, which is wrong. I need to push that forward by an hour. And do that once more. Right click, add package, new. Now we're going to start off with our block 52s, DMs. We're going to change it to 2. This is going to be a strike. Block 52 strike, size 2. Fighter squadron is Kimpo. Hongyang bridges are target. Skill is ace, and it's not takeoff, it's on target time. So press OK to that. Going to add a new one. This time it's going to be a seed. It's not from Kimpo this time. It's going to be from Suyang. And everything is okay there except target instead of takeoff time. Press OK to that. And the third one is going to be a Typhoons. I'm going to make 3 of those. And they're going to provide escort. And the escort is going to be to our strike flight, which is Cowboy 1. So on the target we select Cowboy 1 as the strike option, and again we take target as the start time and press OK to that. So those 3 flights look okay, and I'm going to press OK to those. And now we're going to look at our air tasking order and our strike package. We're going to check them. We're going to check the strike one first of all and make sure its time on target is good, and it's 6:30, bang on. 6:30 is perfect. So we're now going to have a quick look. I'm going to expose these. I'm going to have a quick look at how the time plays out as we run forward the clock. So okay, we can see the 3 of them are sequenced in that way. I need to just move it forward because I know the strike package is on station at 6:30, so that's it there. So we can see that it's trailing the other 2 by too much. So I'm going to not move this. This is the right time, and I'm going to move the escort and the seed back a little bit. So let's wind the clock back a little bit here and have them in a line. And I'm going to choose from the air tasking order. I'm going to choose this escort, move that back a little bit first. And the way we do that is we select the steer point, select the flight first of all on the map, then we select the steer point, and we can see it's Fury 1. Check that again. Fury 1 is the escort and Falcon is the seed. So Fury 1 are locked target. Remember, before we change the time, make sure everything else is okay, and we've only got 1 lock on it, and so that's okay. And we want to move that back, so we want to make it a little bit later. I'm going to wind it by the seconds because there's only a small amount I need to move it, so I'm going to move it back enough there. And we'll do the same thing again for the seed. Choose it, close it out, select the target steer point for it, make sure there's a lock on it, make sure there's no other lock on, and come back to that. We can see it's Falcon. We can actually choose any of these flights from here, and we're going to now change the time on this. And once again, we want to move this back in time, so we want to make it later. So I'm going to wind this forward. Okay, there's a reasonable distance between them. I'm happy with that, and that's the package that's going to strike. So now we're going to move this back, clock back, and I'm going to put in the cap flight. And I'm going to make it try and make it at 6:10. And we know if it's 6:10, we have to bring this back by 30 minutes in order to make the package for that takeoff time. So I'm going to bring that to 6:10. Gives us 5:40. So 5:40. So let's see how that works out. Change the side here, right click on the map to add package, and it's given us 6:10 for the takeoff, or the time on target. That's what we want. Now we're going to choose that, and we're going to select our MiGs, MiG-29As, there they go. I'm going to choose 3 of them. That's okay. Company is the Airbase East, and we're going to change what it's doing to barrier cap. 3 of them with the 3. Instead of takeoff, it's going to be target, and we press OK to that, and it's created the flight, which is good. And we're going to have it intercepting with the other 2 flights there. Now I'm going to check the time on this, and it's 6:10 on station, which is bang on what we want, so we haven't really had to adjust this flight. I'm going to go to the air tasking order and switch off all the flights so we don't see them. Actually, if I switch them on again, I might be able to switch them off that way. Yeah. So we're all good there. Now, the last thing I need to do is I need to change the time that I want the battalion of armour to be travelling at. I'm going to make that 6 in the morning. So I'm going to have it travelling from this bridge here. Check the battalion button, make sure we're on the correct side, press OK to that, and now I'm going to select T-62s and press OK. And once it's come up now, I'm going to press it again, and we get the option to work out where the path is. So I'm going to run it up to here, and it's done it in a very roundabout way, so I'm going to undo that by removing it, and I'm going to try that once more. So add on the tanks, click again, and we're not going to travel so far this time, so that looks better. So that should be en route by the time we attack the target, and they might provide targets of opportunity. So that's pretty much the mission as I want it to be. Last thing I can do is put on some pre-planned steer points. Certainly I need to put on one for the SA3 site, accept, and we need to put our steer point line for the fence in. I put that somewhere halfway between both. Let's move it over a little bit here, closer to our area. So they're short enough flights. Last thing we want to do is check our weapons, and do that one by one. We select the flight, strike flight first of all, and check our loadout. The strike flight has got 2 GBU-24s and some air defense stuff, a couple of tanks on, that's fine. The next one is the Seed, it's carrying our 2 AGM-88s, there they go there. Again, a couple of air defense missiles and tanks. And lastly, not least, our escort. And we can see the potential of the Typhoons. Look at the number of air-to-air missiles it can carry. I'm going to just adjust that because it doesn't have a tank. It's low enough on fuel. Let's see what fuel it's holding, 8,000. So I'm going to put on a centerline tank there. It's not a centerline tank, this is it here, and that gives us a capacity of 10,500 of fuel. So we're going to press OK, close that out. That's pretty much our mission now. All we have to do now is to wind the clock up to allow the individual strike elements to ramp start, and we look at the lowest time here, and we give it maybe 10 or 12 minutes before. So it's 6:08. So I'm going to give it 5 to 5 as the time. I'll wind that back to 5:55. Close this off, and now we're going to save that. Going to save it as save it as 15, and going to have a quick look at what that looks like now. Finally, the final test. Look at it here. 5:55, so we're going to run the clock at 32 speed. You can see our AWACS on station there. Our MiGs are coming on. Hopefully our MiGs and our AWACS don't get into conflict. Okay, now our strike package is starting to assemble. You can see our seed has come out of Suyong. Now our strike from Kimpo and the escort has come down from Mandumi, and they're going to assemble. And now they're en route to the target area. And we can see there's a conflict taking place there, and I don't need to go any further. So that's pretty much all I'm going to do. I hope you found this useful, and feel free to make any comments, and until the next time, see you all then.